Duck is God's gift to game birds. It's got enough fat on it that it can confit its own legs. I can roast the breasts and pull the fat out of there too, but it gets nice and crispy, and it's a beautiful rich meat. The legs are easily braised or confit. It's got 2 different methods of cooking. Duck. They come in 2 kinds, mallard, muscovy. I'll be doing a confit of duck and a civet of duck, 2 different preparations, but similar in their own right. Removing the breast of the duck. Around the wing bone. I don't worry about taking the wings off. And right to the leg. Look for the joint, straight down. Ducks have a lot of fat in them. I'll be using the duck fat from this duck when I make my confit. The duck breasts are going to be trimmed from their extra fat. The fat is very, very useful. It's worth it to buy a whole duck because you can use the fat, you can use the legs, you can use the breasts. For the joint. Straight down. There's the other leg. The rest of the breast off. This goes into a roasting pan at a low heat to render the duck fat. I need this duck fat. It's very important for when I make a confit. After it's rendered at about 300 degrees for 10 minutes or so, an hour or so, cook it low and slow. That's how you want it. Beautiful duck fat. Claudia, could you close that oven door for me, please?
Yes, chef.
These breasts I'll use later. Trim a little bit of the extra duck fat off the leg. And for my confit, I'm going to rub it with some garlic. This is going to be a dry marinade. I use rock salt because I want to pull a lot of the moisture out of the duck. Bay leaves, rock salt. This is going to sit for 24 hours and marinate. Then it'll be cooked in its duck fat at a very low temperature for a very long time. Okay, Claudia, can you sprinkle some of that black peppercorn on here and then cover it and put it in the refrigerator for me, please?
Yes, chef.
Thanks. And actually, I'll bring these legs over. Next, the civet. A braising method for the duck. The legs, not the breasts. They'll go into the pan to marinate for 24 hours. A little orange zest. The juice of 1 orange. Some more similar marinating ingredients. Garlic cloves, thyme sprigs, bay leaves. I'll crack those up a little bit too. Black pepper. My mirepoix, which has been cooked. I've cooked it down. It's easier to extract the flavors from your vegetables when they're cooked. It's also been cooled. And red wine. I'm actually using a Cabernet Sauvignon. This is going to marinate for 24 hours, and the flavors are going to blend. The flavors of the mirepoix are going to come together. The carrot, celery, onions, garlic, thyme, bay leaf. Use the whole thing. Throw it right in there. Orange zest. And this gets covered and put in the refrigerator also. And this is where the magic happens. In 24 hours, this is going to be perfect, ready to go, ready to braise. And we'll cover it up and put it away. Great. Thank you. Duck fat is like liquid gold. In France, when it's not liquid, they spread it on bread. And it just has an infinite number of uses. And one duck yields so much duck fat. You can do its own legs in confit from one duck, the amount of fat that you get. Okay, now you can go.
So you want to check on these civet?
Yeah. See how that looks after sitting there?
Some confit duck.
Yeah. After sitting for 24 hours or more, if I want, my confit of duck is ready to go. It's all marinated, and all of the juices have been leached out of the duck. That's the working of the coarse salt. I'm going to use my tongs with this because I'll be cooking this at a very low temperature, and I want to make sure that everything is very, very clean. So I'm going to tap off the juices that have run off of the duck. Give it a little pat with the paper towel. Now, confit is cooked for a long time in duck fat, the duck fat that I rendered earlier. And with my tongs, I'm going to lower this carefully into warm fat, not hot. I'm not deep frying this. This is going to be cooking at 275 degrees in the oven for at least 3 hours. It's going to go in, and it's got to be completely submerged in order for the confit to work properly. The lid goes on. .275-degree oven for at least 3 hours. My oven-proof pot. I'm not even going to open the oven for 3 hours, not even before checking. When it is finished, after 3 hours at least, I'll pull it out of the oven and have a look. Oh, that's beautiful. That's exactly what you want your duck confit to look like. With a clean pair of tongs. Again, this has to be very, very clean. I'm going to carefully lift the meat out of the fat and put it in my container that I'm going to be chilling the fat in. This confit is going to go into the refrigerator, and it can hold for up to 30 days or longer, provided it's always submerged in fat. The French created this method of cooking before refrigeration was available. I'm going to strain the fat over top. I just want the clear fat. I don't want any of the marinade ingredients. I don't want any of the juices that have been left at the bottom. And that should be totally covered in fat. I'm just going to flip it over. And this goes into the refrigerator. I like to leave it for 2 days before I try it. If I'm in a rush, I'll have it in 2 days. If I'm not in any hurry, I'll wait a week or so. Now my civet. This marinated for 24 hours. Look how great that is. I don't have to worry about it being as clean as with the confit, so I can use my fingers. I'm taking it out of the marinade and patting it dry. And Claudia is going to actually just strain all of the ingredients out of the marinade for me, because the marinade is what I'm going to use to cook the duck in. This has to be very well dried, and it's going to go into a pan that's very hot, full of duck fat. First, it's going to be drudged in seasoned flour. Turn this up. Once the duck legs are dredged in the seasoned flour, very lightly, this is going to contribute to the thickness of the sauce, but also I'll be using some reduced veal stock to help with the thickening. After these have sauteed, I'm going to get them nice and brown, very caramelized on the outside. That's what they're going to look like. That's great. That's exactly what I want them to look like. Look at that. Beautiful. Claudia, will you bring over the strained marinade for me? Yes, chef. In goes my veal stock, and in goes our marinade. That's great. Yum. Okay, all of our aromatics have been removed. I put my parchment paper lid on top. Parchment's very important. Gives a nice lid, a little breathing hole in the center. And this goes into a 325-degree oven for at least an hour or two to slowly braise. And that meat is going to be so tender when it's done. Oh, it's going to be unbelievable.
Can't wait.
My favorite duck dish is duck confit. It falls off the bone, it melts in my mouth, and it's the perfect showcase for duck. I love it. My duck confit is ready to go. It's been refrigerating for 24 hours. The confit, when I put it into the refrigerator earlier, it didn't have enough fat on it. It's very important that the fat be totally immersing the duck. So I poured some extra fat on top, and now I'm going to fish around and pull out my duck confit. It's not the cleanest job in the world, but it's kind of fun to have your hands in some grease. I'm going to scrape off the extra fat and put this in a nice hot pan, skin side down, because I want it to become really nice and crispy. Get the other one out of here. Okay. It's important that I take the extra fat off because I don't want it to be deep frying. But the little bit of fat will go a long way and it'll actually help it crisp up. Okay. There we go. That can sit skin side down for a while. This is a duck breast from a magret duck. I can tell it's a magret, which is a duck that has produced foie gras. The reason why I know this is because it's so large. It's a very, very fatty duck. As you can see, there's an enormous amount of fat on the breast. I'm going to remove some of this fat and trim it down along the line of the breast. Thanks, Claudia. Can you just have a look at those? I mean, duck fat's good, but I want to make sure that I don't have too much in my pan when I'm cooking my duck breast. Now, I'm not going to throw out this skin that I'm cutting off. I'm actually going to save this for rendering for later. And I'm also taking off this little bit of silver skin. Sometimes there's a bit of bone here. And that's going to make it shrink. Before I put it in the pan, I'm scoring this before I sear it. It's important that the fat be scored because it allows the duck fat to render more easily. That also looks quite nice. And I'm making sure that when I slice down, I only go right until I hit the meat and not into the meat. I put this in a cold pan. Why a cold pan? Because I want to render the meat. I also cook bacon in a cold pan. Start it in a cold pan, turn it on high. Once it starts to sizzle, I turn it down to around medium high. And this is what it looks like. Beautiful, crispy. There's only a very small amount of fat left on the bird, on the breast. That little bit of fat is going to be beautiful and crispy, and it's golden brown. Now time to make the sauce. The duck breast, I'm going to let it rest on a plate because duck should be served medium to medium rare, and I'm definitely keeping this fat because I can use it for something else. I can use it to put back into my confit if I want to make another one. But with this sauce, all I need is my crispy little bits left in the pan. And once I get this hot, I'm going to deglaze it with maple syrup and soy sauce. Claudia, can you just pass me that wooden spoon over there?
Yes, chef.
Thanks. Scrape up these little bits. This is where all the flavor is, right at the bottom of the pan. All of the caramelized juices. Some maple syrup. a little squeeze of soy. And this rosemary, I'm putting in a whole sprig just to infuse the taste, the scent of the rosemary, release the oils. And I'll let this simmer down. And that's going to be the sauce for my perfect duck breast. How's that one going?
Great.
Gotta be careful. When buying a duck, I personally usually buy a female duck. It's a smaller duck. It's usually more tender. And you know, the breasts are still big enough that you can serve 2 people out of it. I have something in this pot that is going to blow your mind. This confit is totally worth the wait. It takes a little while, but look at that. That's amazing. Duck fat is nice and crispy on the exterior. The duck leg meat is so tender because it's been cooking for so long, and I've left that one to sit in its own fat. Now I've got some duck fat here. It doesn't end at the duck fat in the confit. This duck fat is coming up to temperature to fry up my French fries, or frites. I have them in cold water to wash the starch off. They've been patted dry on a towel. They have to be very dry, otherwise I could injure myself with some spraying oil, and I certainly don't want that, so I'm going to gently lower those in there. And let these cook. Oh yeah. Duck fat French fries. Have you had those before, Claudia?
I haven't. Can't wait to try it.
I'll give it a little stir. And while those are cooking in that duck fat, can you have a look at these and make sure they don't
Yes, chef.
burn? And my duck breast has been resting. It's perfect. It's ready to go. There's more than one way to cut a duck breast. Most people slice it this way. I always slice it away from the bone because when it's sliced away from the bone, it looks much nicer when you cut it. Look at that. That's perfect. I can cut it this way and fan it, or I can cut it. That's great. Nicely rendered duck fat right there. I can cut it lengthways too. And there's nothing wrong with cutting it lengthways. Actually, it's very pretty. I'm going to leave it attached here at this end, and it'll make a really beautiful fan once it gets onto the plate. I'll cut off that extra piece of tenderloin there, and check that out. Perfect little fan. And right over to my plate with risotto. And my sauce that I made earlier is perfectly reduced. A nice glaze there. Take out my rosemary sprig. Drizzle that on top. Oh yeah. That's beautiful. A few blackberries. Little coarse salt.
Oh,
great.
That's gorgeous.
That's not all.
Oh.
Have a look in here. The civet is ready to be beautiful duck fat. I'm going to use both hands here because this pot has 2 handles.
I'm behind you. I'll close the door.
Okay, thanks. And look how beautiful this is.
Oh, I can smell it.
Are you ready? Could you actually grab me that discard bowl and I'll put this paper in there. And my tongs. Thanks.
Here you go.
Thank you. Oh yeah, check that out. This duck civet has been cooking just a perfect amount of time to tenderize the meat. Absolutely beautiful. That sauce is great. I'm going to garnish it with some of that bacon and an orange zest. Okay, how are those confits and frites doing?
The frites are done.
Great. This is done too. I just need a spot of parsley on here. Thank you. Right there, perfect. And the frites ready to go with the confit. That's awesome. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Nice mount right underneath.
Falling off the bone, just the way it's supposed to be.
That's awesome. How about 2? We can share it.
No, arguing there.
Do you want some more parsley?
Yeah, sure. Give it a
Okay.
little sprinkle, some garnish.
Great. Yum! The night that I was engaged, we went to the French Laundry in the Napa Valley and were totally blown away. And in particular, one of the dishes was a foie gras ravioli. And the foie gras was pan-seared just before it came to the table. And after it was pan-seared, they wrapped it in the pasta so that as soon as I got it and they poured over the truffle jus, I cut it open and the crispness of the foie gras was still encased in the ravioli. And when it went into my mouth, it was just an explosion. It was amazing. Looks good though. Today we have made, you and me, we've put together 3 speeds of cooking duck, which has given us so much back in return. Slow, slower, and fast. This is a dry heat method on the breast, a moist heat method on the confit, and a moist heat method on the duck civet, and this looks amazing. I like that soy maple.